All right, today we're going to look at the world a little differently. Think of it like a giant interconnected playground. And trust me, the games being played on it, they have a huge impact on your wallet, the tech you use every day, and even who holds power on the world stage.
I know, it sounds like the start of a really weird joke, right? Motorcycle clubs, AI, and your Wi-Fi router. What on earth do they have in common? But you gotta stick with me here, because the answer actually connects everything from global politics to the future of tech, and yeah, it even helps explain why your power bill might be creeping up. Okay, so let's jump right in. Picture this. The entire world is one massive playground. Each continent, it's its own island. To get between them, you gotta have a boat. And dotted around this playground, you've got these 5 really important water fountains. These fountains, well, they're the world's biggest oil and gas producers.
So you get thirsty, you go to a water fountain. But how do you pay? Well, you can't just use whatever money you have in your pocket. Nope. Most of them only take one kind of payment, like a special carnival token. And that token? It's the US dollar. This whole setup is called the petrodollar system. It basically means that if, say, Germany wants to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, they first have to go get a bunch of US dollars. This creates this constant, never-ending demand for the dollar and gives the United States this huge economic leg up.
But, that whole playground metaphor, that's really just the beginner's level. To really get how power works on the world stage, we've got to upgrade our thinking. So let's switch from a playground to something a bit more real. Think of the world as a bunch of powerful, competing motorcycle clubs. And here's the key difference. On the playground, we like to imagine there are rules, fair play, sharing resources, that kind of thing. But in the motorcycle club world, forget it. All that matters is your turf, your reputation, and whether the other big clubs even acknowledge you exist. It's a much grittier, much more raw, power-based game. So how does a new club even get on the map? I mean, how does a country become a country? It's not enough to just plant a flag and say we're here. You need territory, you need a government for sure. But the most crucial step, you only really exist when the other major clubs decide to recognize you. Just look at Taiwan. It has everything a country needs, but because China, a very powerful club, says no, it's not officially recognized. On the flip side, you've got South Sudan. Back in 2011, they got the votes, got the recognition, and boom, they became the newest official nation.
Okay, so in this world of biker gangs and turf wars, what's the most valuable piece of real estate? What's the turf everyone is fighting over? Well, it's not oil fields anymore. The new battleground, the most valuable territory on the planet, is the tech that powers everything: semiconductor chips and AI.
Take a look at this number, 90%. Just let that sink in for a second. 90. It's a massive, massive figure. So, what in the world could be that concentrated in one spot? That's it. 90% of the world's most advanced, most powerful semiconductor chips are all made in one place, Taiwan. I mean, just think about that. The processor in your iPhone, the NVIDIA chips that power all this crazy AI stuff, almost all of it flows through this one tiny island. We're talking about an unbelievable concentration of power, and frankly, an incredible amount of risk. And if you think that's concentrated, wait, it gets crazier. The Taiwanese company that makes all these chips, TSMC, they can't do it alone. They depend on these incredibly complex machines made by one company, a Dutch company, called ASML. ASML has a 100% monopoly on this tech. Each machine costs over $200 million and needs these hyper-precise mirrors that can only be made in Germany. So get this, the key to the entire digital economy, the whole shebang, is basically held by a little-known Dutch-German tech alliance. Wild. So what are we doing with all these chips? Well, more and more, they're feeding the beast that is AI. And AI is thirsty, incredibly thirsty for electricity. Just look at this chart of US data center power use. It's skyrocketing. By 2028, the demand is projected to be so high, it's like plugging an entire new country, about the size of Spain, into the US power grid. So yeah, that global AI arms race, it's connected directly to what you're going to be paying for electricity. So, just as the West is pouring billions and billions into building this super expensive AI infrastructure, China drops what you could call the DeepSeek bombshell. A pretty small Chinese company comes out of nowhere and releases a really powerful AI model. And the training cost? About $5.6 million. That's a tiny fraction of what Western models cost. This isn't just about saving money. This is a fundamental challenge to the West's long-held assumption that they're the only ones who can innovate at the highest level.
Okay, so we've talked about motorcycle clubs, petrodollars, chip monopolies. It all sounds pretty abstract, right? So how does any of this actually hit home? Well, it turns out it affects pretty much everything, from the rent you pay to the router that gives you Wi-Fi.
Let's take a look at how these massive global pressures actually feel for regular people, the bottom 50%. In the US, it's your power bill going up because of that AI boom and, of course, just insane housing costs. In China, young people can't find jobs. In Germany, sky-high energy prices. See, these aren't just far-off geopolitical problems. This is the direct result, the real-world consequence of the games these big clubs are playing.
And let's just drill down on the US for a second. When nearly half of what the average person earns is just going to keep a roof over their head, that's not just a personal finance problem. That is a direct consequence of the very same monetary policies that keep that whole carnival token system going. It's a system that ends up putting a massive squeeze on regular people.
So where does all this leave us? What's the big takeaway here? I think it's this. The central kind of uncomfortable truth is that this global playground, it has no referees. There's no one in charge, no adult supervision to make sure everyone plays fair.
And when you start connecting all these different threads, a pretty clear picture starts to form. Our world is fragmenting, breaking up into regional blocks. Our technology is dangerously concentrated in just one or two spots. The need for electricity to power AI is quickly becoming just as important as the old fights over oil. And then there's demographics, shrinking populations in the world's biggest economies. That is a slow-moving freight train that's going to reshape absolutely everything. And look, this isn't some fringe theory. This is Ray Dalio, the guy who founded the biggest hedge fund in the world. He puts it pretty bluntly. The era of one dominant power, the US, that dictates the order that other countries follow, is over. That whole moment where one country called all the shots, it's done.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with our motorcycle club metaphor. Because in a world that works like that, international law often takes the back seat. The biggest, most powerful clubs, they just make the rules as they go.
So that leaves us with one last big question for you to think about. In a playground with no referees, in a world where power is shifting so fast and so dramatically, who is really making the rules that shape your life? Thanks for digging into this with us.